Prashant, I'll start new batch. Just give me some time to form it. Syllabus I have to check, okay? मैं syllabus check कर रही हूँ प्रशांत. I'll check the syllabus and I'll start. हाँ. Yeah, I'll clear your doubt, Kamya. I'll clear your doubt, okay? Dani, I'll clear your doubt. Now look here, last class we were discussing about, once I'll go to filial generation, that time I'm going to discuss everything about it, okay? First I'll go to filial generation, that time I'll explain everything. It's not clear, just let it get uploaded. Last class we were talking about, wait, it's not showing. Just give me 1 minute. Yes, no, it's came. Now last class we were talking about type of variations. In that we discussed about somatic variation and we discussed about first we discussed about somatic variation, second we was exactly talking about germline mutations. So there are two different type of mutations. Okay, two different type of mutations there are. So one is genetic variation, second one is somatic variations. Two different type of variations are there. First is exactly somatic variation, second one is genetic variations. So what is the difference between somatic variation and genetic variation? Everyone just answer the question quickly. What is the difference between somatic variation and genetic variation? Somatic variation, good evening Saran. Somatic variation and genetic variation. Come on, start answering the question fast. What is the difference between somatic variation and genetic variation? Okay, somatic variation and genetic variation. Good evening Kavya. Somatic and genetic. Fine. Inform quickly somatic and genetic. So we know that when only it is not exactly going to affect the gene. If any gene difference will be there, means if there is any mutation in DNA, then it will affect the child, and that it will be exactly called as genetic variation. But somatic variation is like the physical structure change will be there. Like a person who will meet with an accident, he will have a cut in the hand. So once this cut will be there, so after that if he will have children, so these children will exactly not have that cut. So definitely it is only outer body structure change, and since it is outer body structure change, it will be exactly called as somatic variation. It will be called as, it will not move in the germ line, so definitely it will not be a germ line mutation. But if you see, if any mutation is there in the sperm, and the sperm will exactly get fused with the ova and the child will be born, the child will be exactly born with a mutation, and this will be exactly called as it is exactly called as genetic variations. Okay, so now we have already discussed about it, so we are going to go to the next one, that is germinal or genetic variation. We have finished. And then sources of genetic variations. So what are the sources of genetic variations? What are the sources of genetic variations? What are the sources of genetic variations? So we know that the most important thing is in examination what you have to write. In examination you have to write exactly, like genetic variation is caused either by changes in the number of structure of chromosomes or the genes. The diversity is quite high in case of sexually reproducing organisms because of reshuffling of trait during gamete formation and fusion of gamete during fertilization. So now look here, genetic variation is what? Genetic variation is caused by either by changes in the number of structure of chromosomes or genes. genes. So if there will be a small change in the number of chromosomes or gene, then also genetic variation will be there. So how genetic variation pass on? Hello Anush, okay, hello Anush. Now first thing is that if somebody will be asking you that genetic variation is caused due to what factors, so what are the factor which causes genetic variation? What are the factors which causes genetic variation? The first factor which causes genetic variation is change in the number of structure of chromosomes or genes. So if there will be a change in the number of structure of chromosomes or gene, then genetic variation will be there. This genetic variation you are naming it as mutation. This genetic variation you are exactly naming it as mutation, because small changes in the gene will cause mutation. I hope you might have understood. So what is responsible for exactly changes? So number of structure of chromosomes or genes are responsible for it. Next, the diversity is quite high in case of, or this type of changes are quite high in case of what? This number of changes are quite high in name of what? Formation of fusion of gamete during fertilization. So at the time of fertilization, these things are exactly like at the time of sexual reproduction. The time of sexual reproduction, this is exactly going to be more. Means why? Because variations are more. So since variations will be more, so this type of exactly content will be more. So that means we can think of more variations there. Fine. So now let's go for the next one. Now, accumulation of variation during reproduction, asexual reproduction. So now my question is, in which type of reproduction accumulation of variation is more? Then you will answer that, Aunty, we know that in asexual reproduction, accumulation of variation is less, and in sexual reproduction, accumulation of variation is more. Means the chances of variety is less. In asexual reproduction, variety means, here when we are talking about variety means, I am not talking about variety of any other thing. I am talking about changes in the DNA, changes in the DNA or mutation or selection of traits. Okay, so that is exactly more. So how we are going to talk about this in asexual reproduction? So asexual reproduction, we are, Sarthak, good evening beta. Asexual reproduction, when we are talking about, at that particular moment we will be saying that okay, in asexual reproduction variations are very less and it will be inaccurate, it will not be that much. So what is the reason behind? I am just asking one question. What is the reason behind in asexual reproduction having less variations? Why asexual reproductions are having less variations and sexual reproductions are having more variations? Sexual reproductions are having more variations and asexual reproductions are having less variations. One parent, very good Akshaya. In short, you have told that if one parent is involved, then there are chances of variation will be less, because whatever DNA will be there, it will directly transfer to the offspring. So definitely this is one point. Another point. Because this is just one point you talked about. This is one point you talked about, that is because one parent is there, accumulation, one parent is there. Okay. Just give me another point. Everyone's sleeping. Come on, wake up. small inaccuracies is DNA, correct only beta. The most important point here is that here inaccuracies means what? So you know that in sexual reproduction, parents, father and mother will be there. Father will be exactly giving character to the baby, mother will be giving character to the baby, so both will be giving character to the baby, and because of that only much variations are there. But when in asexual reproductions only one parent is involved, at that particular moment one parent is involved, at that particular moment what happens, that inaccuracies means amount of variation will be very less. So we can say that the amount of inaccuracies will be exactly less. So when amount of inaccuracies will be less, then more or less the child will be clone or very much similar to the mother, very much similar to the what you call parent, very much similar to the parent. Because of that only in asexual reproduction we say that clones are formed. In asexual reproduction what are formed? Clones are formed, and exactly clones are formed. What is forming there? Clones are formed. Asexual reproduction like amoeba, bacteria, yeast, they will be exactly replicating their parent. Replicating their parent means they will be exactly like clone of the parent, because the parent cells are only dividing, or the parent cells are only giving the daughter cells. Because of that only they will be totally similar to that of their parents. Okay, so now accumulation of variation during reproduction in sexual reproduction. So now look here, they may tell you to differentiate between these two. They may tell you to differentiate between what are the exactly variations there in asexual and sexual. So where accuracies will be more, where accuracies will be less. So here you have to understand one thing. In sexual reproduction, when characters are inherited from two parents, that is male and female, similarity as well as subtle differences are inherited. See, look here, subtle differences means the differences which can be seen. Okay, means similarities are also and differences are also going to be there. So here underlining this very first very important point, when characters are inherited from two parents, male and female, similarities as well as subtle differences are inherited. Similarities means कि what is similar between both father and mother, means what are the common similarities that will be inherited by the child. Like father eye color is black, mother eye color is also black, that means the child eye color will also be black. So that is one similarity. Now next is variations, means subtle differences. Subtle differences means father is exactly a tall height, mother is short height, but the child will be exactly of good height. So definitely subtle difference between father and mother, it can also be inherited. So the child may be short height or the child may be what you call tall. So that means when the child will be tall, you will say that hey, you are exactly like your father. And when the difference is exactly, because we can see this physical difference, that mother height is very less and father height is more, so the child will be exactly born with that subtle difference also. So that means difference between father and mother in characters and similarities, both are exactly adopted. Both are exactly what? Both are exactly adopted. Now next important, that is the first point. So when you will be writing the examination, you must write this point first. Next is, these differences lead to variations among the individual of new generations. So 100% these generations means, then what will happen? Sometimes what happens that when father and mother both have different characters and the child has exactly a combination of both the character. So definitely the child is exactly a variation, a result of variation. Now this child will marry to some other person. So definitely again a long short of means accumulation of variations will be there. So that means the new generation means time to time that variations keeps on getting transferred from one generation to another. So that is what the new generation in turn reproduce, the second generation produced accumulate more variation. So correct now, like I am having variation, now my children will be there, they have more variation, now their children will be there, they have more variation. So like this way we keep on transferring the variations. In this way we keep on transferring the variations. Okay, So some of these variations are inherited from first generation and some are newly created. So that means what? Ki first you have to understand that ki now just one simple example I am giving you, because this is a very important point. They may drag you in this point because first filial generation is first generation, second filial generation is second generation. So I want to tell you one very important discussion. This point I am discussing that ki okay, your grandfather and grandmother, my grandfather and grandmother, they were very healthy, no disease was there. Okay, so now understand this. So when my grandfather and grandmother, from both from my father's side, both from my mother's side, they were very healthy, no problem with them. Now my father and mother got married and now I am there. So exactly what is there is ki now my mother had some my mother has accumulated some disease, and that disease is exactly transferable. Okay, now she has some mutation and she got some disease, and now that disease will exactly getting transferred to the babies. So definitely specifically to daughter. Now what will be there? So now first generation, my grandparents generation, it was exactly pure line. Are you understanding this one? Are you understanding this point what I am saying right now? So the first generation was pure line, it was exactly free of disease. Now the second generation, because now I am the second generation, because after my parents, once they gave birth to me, now I am the second generation right now. So now I imbibe that disease from my mother. So now is there, now in my bloodline, now this disease will keep on getting transferred. Now in my bloodline, the disease will keep on getting what you call transferred. If that disease is transferable in the gene, that means it will keep on getting transferred. That means now the gene got affected. That means first generation was a pure line, second generation got affected, third generation, fourth generation, fifth generation keep on exactly having that effect. Did you understood this point? Did you understood this point? Understood? This is a very important point I am discussing. So that's why like bloodline, first generation, second generation, third generation, if one of the generation will get affected and after that in the bloodline that disease will transfer, that means it will keep on getting transferred. It will keep on getting transferred. Most of the time this happens. Most of the time this is happening. One disease I am talking about, it's thyroid. What is the work of thyroid is like biomagnification, yes beta, but the most important point here is in thyroid, you know what happens. Thyroid is a disease of what you called iodine deficiency. The iodine deficiency creates thyroid. Now what happens, that mother is the carrier of it. Now just understand that कि my grandmother did not had thyroid. Now my mother got thyroid because of some environmental factor or some food habit, she got thyroid. Now she gave birth to me. Now thyroid is exactly transferable, and you know what, a mother is the carrier and she gift this disease to only daughters, not son. Only in rare cases son will also have thyroid, means most of the cases it will go in daughter line. So 100% I will be imbibing that. Now I will give it to my daughter will give it to her daughter. So now did you understood, once it will be added in the bloodline, it will keep on getting transmitted. Yes, I hope you might have understood this point. So once it will be exactly getting for the first time, once it is exactly getting for the first time, now it's exactly kept on getting transferred. Now once it will keep on getting, so one time it is transferred, now it will keep on getting transferred. So this is what it is written, that the new generation in return reproduce the second generation product, now accumulates more variation. Some of these variations are inherited from first generation and some are newly created. So just newly created means now second generation had some effect, now it will pass on to third generation, and like this it will keep on successive generations. It will keep on transferring from one generation to another generation. This is the most important point about what you call reproduction. So variations in an individual may be advantageous or disadvantageous. It may enable or enable the organisms to cope with changes in the environment. 100% sometimes the variation will be advantageous. Right now what variation I talked about thyroid, is it advantageous or disadvantageous? Tell me. Well, right now I talked about a disease called as thyroid. Do you think it is advantageous or disadvantageous? Means once it will exactly get added in the bloodline, it is not at all going to leave. So is it advantageous or disadvantageous? I am going to clear your doubt, Akshay. I know that the moment I will go to first filial generation, I'm going to teach you that thoroughly, and after that you will never have doubt in that, trust me. Because once I will start jump the content, it will go here and there. So only. So Kamya, Kamya, I know that question. I read that question already. So Kamya, disadvantages 100%. So beta, any disease transmission from mother to the daughter or daughter to the coming generation means it will always be disadvantage. Now I am talking about one advantage, like now you have sustainability of temperature, means you can sustain temperature. Correct, Dharani, means now you can sustain some temperature variations, and now your body is adapted to it. Now if that sustenance in the body temperature, Akshay, just trust me beta, I am going to explain everything, don't worry, I'll explain it in correct time, just give me time beta. So that means once like we will be exactly sustaining to our like adaptability in the environment. So sometimes what happens, we are adapted to certain environment, we are not adapted to certain environment. Now you just understand that human generation, they are exactly the pollution. First we were living in pollution free environment. If our ancestor will come here, they will suffocate to death, because now the pollution level is very, very high. So this pollution level, air pollution, water pollution, they will definitely infect them in a very what you call bitter way. But we are exactly sustaining, because we have changed our structure, we have evolved in due course of time, and we were exactly, Akshaya, Tawfiq, Auntie, one doubt, we all came from one person and became many. Do we have the DNA of that person? See, look here, if I don't want to go into that I don't want to go in that what you call diplomatic content. I just want to say one thing, that yes, the line of development was there, and it took millions of years to just make different species. Small variations has created and but still there are certain similarities we are having, and we are exactly analogous and homologous. We are learning there that which branch of the which branch we are very similar, and which branch of so what you call species we are exactly different. So definitely we have some similarities, okay. But if you are going to compare yourself with archaebacteria, can you tell me what is archaebacteria here? Archaebacteria, archaebacteria, what is exactly about archaebacteria is? Archaebacteria, eubacteria. Archaebacteria, eubacteria, blue-green algae. Archaebacteria, eubacteria, blue-green algae, tell me. See, archaebacteria, eubacteria, blue-green algae, what we call it, they were the first living organism that came on the surface of Earth. Okay, they were the first primitive organism that came on the surface of Earth. They were chemotrophs, means they were chemical eaters, and they were they were capable of living in acidic environment. Okay, and if you will be asking about Tawfiq, archaea single organ, this is unicellular organism. We can't call them single organ. We are calling them unicellular organisms. And the most important thing is archaebacteria, eubacteria, they were chemotrophs, chemical taking. They were taking very different with very complex chemicals, and they were releasing simple chemicals. Okay, so simple gases they were releasing. That is one of a very important point. And if you think, then our ancestors are them, unicellular organism. So unicellular organisms, and from there only variations and evolution started. And now we have exactly, I think, how many species are there on earth, you will be coming to know in biology higher classes. I hope you might have understood this point. Now we are going to go about the next important point is heredity. So now the process of transmission of genetic trait or character. So Akshay, I am going towards heredity. So prokaryotes, absolutely correct beta. Eukaryotic, prokaryotic is there, and unicellular, multicellular organisms we are talking about. So unicellular organisms, they are unicellular organisms, and they were exactly having one cell only. So the structure is exactly one cell, and from that one cell we got evoluted to multicellular organisms and having a very complex body structure. The process of transmission of genetic trait character from one generation to another, from parents to offspring, is called heredity. From parents to offspring is exactly called as heredity. So definition of heredity, never think they are going to ask. Till now they have never asked that what is the definition of heredity. What they will be asking, that how heredity is creating a change in how heredity has created a change. So now like this type of questions will be exactly asking. So how heredity is responsible for variation. So these are the questions we are exactly expecting. Okay, the process of transmission of genetic trait characters from one generation to another, from parents to offspring, is called as heredity. That means transmission of character. So how heredity is responsible for exactly variation. This is one of the question. The offspring differ from one another and also from their parents of few character. The similarity and in many cases dissimilarity are inherited, and that is exactly the part of heredity. Why do children resemble their parents? This is one of a very important question. Why do children resemble their parents? One important question. Why do children resemble their parents? Why do children resemble their parents? What is the reason behind children resemble their parents? What is the reason behind the children are resembling their parents? What is the reason behind the children are resembling their parents? Means they are like their father, they are like their mother. So why do children are resembling their parents? DNA copying. This is because the parents, both father and mother, pass on gene to their children. So if we can say na ki we have a habit of saying that ki we are individual, we are not a part of anyone, but it's exactly untrue. The reason behind is we are exactly because children have both the DNA copies of parents. Absolutely correct, Shivatsan. So when we are talking that we are individual, similarities of trait or characters passed to progeny while reproduction. Absolutely correct, Sudarshan. So the correct content here is that you have to understand that gametes, sexual reproduction, at the time of sexual reproduction, what happens, both this is because a parent pass on gene to their children through gametes during sexual reproduction. These gene control expressions of characters in the young ones. So children can attain characteristics of either of their parents or maybe of their grandparents too. So 100% their answer is exactly accurate. Means what? Ki here you have to understand one small thing. Here you have to understand one small thing, that is that the parent, both the parent, they are exactly giving their character. So and from where they are giving their character, they are exactly giving their character in the gamete. So the male and the female gamete are exactly the haploid gametes. They are exactly containing the genetic character. These characters are going crossover, and from there is selection of character, and there is a selection of character, but from the father or mother only the child will be imbibing the character, or sometimes from the grandparent, because we know that from father and mother, in father and mother also genes of grandparent will be there. So the genes of grandparents, great grandparents, great grandparents, everything will be present there, and because of that only what happens, Because of that only what happens, that the child will be exactly showing similarity with their parents or grandparents, and that is what these genes control expressions of characters in the young ones. So children can attain characteristics of either of their parents or maybe of their grandparents too, okay. So now genetics is defined as branch of biology which deals with the study of variation. So now who is this person I want to know about first? Who is this person? No, uncle. Who is uncle? No, not from uncle, only from parents, because fine, there will be some similarity with uncle and all, because DNA will be quite matching with uncles and all, but it is not. The level of similarities will not be there, beta. The level of similarities will not be there. The level of similarities will not be there, okay. Now shall we start Mendel, because we have to exactly talk about this person. He was Gregor John Mendel. Gregor John Mendel. Who is he? Who is he? Exactly, initially you have to understand that genetics is exactly defined as branch of biology. Genetic is exactly one of the branch of biology which is only dealing with heredity and evolution. So the branch of biology which is dealing with heredity and evolution is called as genetics, okay. Now the term genetics was first used by W. Batson in 1905. So Gregor John Mendel was whom? Who is this person? Is known as father of genetics. Gregor John Mendel is called as father of fine, I was not in a mood to smile, laugh, but okay, thank you, Sudarshan. Sudarshan is telling Gregor John Mendel is father of genetics, Pitaji of genetics. Yes, father of genetics. You can you can take it as father of genetics. You can take it as he is exactly the father of genetics. Okay, Pitaji of genetics, fine. You can call it as father of genetics, fine. So now the term genetics was first used by W. Batson, and he is exactly calling Gregor John Mendel as father of genetics. Gregor John Mendel as father of genetics. So he was exactly 1982 to 1882 to 1884, he was exactly there. So now next is the trait which are inherited from the parents to the offspring are called inherited traits. So now we are going to go and talk about some very important point about before starting the Mendel's experiment and everything. We are exactly going to talk about some very important points. So the first important point is about trait. So if somebody will be asking you what is called as inherited trait, what is the meaning of inherited trait? If somebody will be asking you what is the meaning of inherited trait, then what answer you are exactly going to give? You will be saying that, okay, auntie, it is very simple. The trait which I am imbibing from my parents, or the trait which I have taken from my father and mother, that trait is called as inherited trait. Inherited trait. The other name of trait is called as characters. The other name of trait is exactly called as what? Characters. So here one very important thing. So these are responsible. The trait which are inherited from the parents to the offsprings are called as inherited trait. Parents to the offsprings are exactly called as, yes, the parents are transferring the trait to the offspring. That traits are exactly called as inherited traits. These are responsible for similarities occurring between offspring and parents. So since the parents are giving trait to the child, so 100%, if parents will have that trait, then only they will give it to child. Now, say if father eye color is black and mother eye color is brown, so 100% two colors are exactly available. And if the child eye color is black, That means 100% the child has selected the trait from the father and mother only. The child had selected the trait from father and mother only. Okay, so these pass in information from parents to offspring and help in inheritance of character. So that is exactly getting transferred from one generation to another one. Okay. Now the next part is heredity. जो gene is functional unit of heredity present at specific point on a chromosomes. Now another important point, now one by one we are exactly going to discuss. So now some very technical points. Okay, now what is a gene? Now let's look on what are exactly genes. So if you are saying that cell is there, in cell what is there? Chromosomes is there. In chromosomes what is there? DNA is there. Now you have to exactly first see where is the gene present. Okay, so now look here, when you will be seeing that I told you that chromatins are present in the nucleus. What is present in the nucleus? Chromatin. The thread like structure present in the nucleus will be called as chromatin. Now what happens before reproduction, these chromatins will get converted into this chromosomes. Okay, fine. Now this you can see this chromatins, chromosomes are exactly made with histones. Okay, so now that is exactly pair of DNA. Now transfer of genetic informations are exactly taking like mitosis, two diploid cells will be obtained. So this is exactly the complete that is packaged DNA formation is exactly there. So this picture if you will be seeing, it is replicating the complete transfer of the genetic character. It is replicating the complete transfer of genetic character. In other way you can say that it is exactly showing the complete transfer of traits. It is showing what? Transfer of traits. So now we are going to just understand that what is gene. So gene is functional unit of heredity present at a specific point on the chromosome. So if I am going to see this chromosome, now I am going to say that in this chromosome gene is exactly a unit. Okay, gene is what? Gene is a unit. What is gene? Gene is a functional unit of heredity present at specific point on a chromosome, and it is present at specific point on a chromosome, and it is present where? It is present at specific point on a chromosome. So biochemically gene is a small fragment of DNA. If somebody will be asking you about gene, then you have to say that if I am going to check the DNA, so I am going to say that a very small fragment of this DNA will be exactly called as gene. Biochemically, gene is a small fragment of DNA. Please remember this one, ribonucleic acid and deoxyribonucleic acid. So what is ribonucleic acid? What is ribonucleic acid? Ribonucleic acid is a single strand. Deoxyribonucleic acid, that is DNA, is a double strand. Now in the DNA, so first we have to understand one thing, and again I am explaining you this point, that what is exactly chromosomes. So chromosomes are exactly having DNA on it. Chromosomes are having what? DNA. And a small fragment of DNA. Yes, chromosomes are collection of DNA, genes. Chromosomes are exactly having genes on it. From last 15-20 minutes, I am just explaining this point only. We have to understand this one. So, beta, first from where, sorry, just give me 1 minute. So for last sometime we have exactly discussed about this point only. I am going to explain this one more time. So from where to where we started, now one more time shall we go for it, because once you will understand that means in future it will not be creating problem for you. First cell, chromosomes and then DNA. Inside cell what will be there? Inside a cell, that is male and female gamete, what will be present? Inside cell what will be there? Chromosomes, and chromosomes will be containing what? Chromosomes will be containing what? Chromosomes will be containing DNA. Inside cell what will be there? Inside cell chromosome will be present, and these chromosomes are exactly having DNA. Now what we have seen that gene is exactly a unit of heredity. Unit of heredity, why? Because the gene is the one which is containing the character or the trait. The gene is the one which is containing the character or the trait. So this is what I am telling you, that gene is a functional unit of heredity present at specific point on chromosomes. So that means on specific points of chromosomes genes will be present. Fine. Now next is biochemically, gene is a small fragment of DNA. So if I am going to take the small fragment of DNA, what I am going to get? Gene. What I am going to get is gene. What I am going to get is gene. Now, which is capable of undergoing replication, expressions and mutations. So now these genes are capable of many things. They will replicate also, they will express also, and they will mute also. This is a very important point. Everyone pay attention for this one. Biochemically, gene is a small fragment of DNA which is capable of undergoing replications. It will replicate itself, it will expression also, replication also, expression also, it will express itself, and mutation also. So the chemical basis of heredity is DNA. The chemical basis of heredity is DNA. The chemical basis of heredity is what? DNA, nucleic acid. The chemical basis of DNA is nucleic acid. So gene can be defined as unit of DNA. What is the unit of DNA? Gene is the unit of DNA on a chromosome which governs the synthesis of a protein that control a specific characteristics of an organism. A characteristic in an individual can be result of a single gene or a multiple gene. So now here I just want to ask this question. A characteristic in an individual can be result of a single gene or a multiple gene. Explain this point. So auntie, inside gene DNA is there, inside gene DNA is there, or inside DNA gene is a one of the part of the DNA. Gene is one of the part of the DNA, or DNA is the part of the gene? Tell me. Think about it. Say about it. Gene is a part of DNA or DNA is a part of gene? Gene is a part of DNA or DNA is a part of gene? What did I said here is, like biochemically, gene is a small fragment of DNA. Yes, Kanishka, it's there. I have already informed Kanishka. Gene is a part of, that is what beta. Gene is a part, means in the DNA na, you might have seen that base pairs are present beta. In the double helix na, it is exactly made with histones. You will be exactly getting base pairs. So these base pairs are exactly multiple genes, multiple characters, and from that multiple characters only some characters are exactly picked up. From that multiple characters only some characters will be exactly picked up beta. So one small fragment, if somebody will be asking you, then you can say that one small fragment of DNA understood. So many DNA present in a chromosome. No beta, DNA will be exactly, the DNA content will be same. The DNA content will be same. The characters that will be present on the gene, that will be multiple. The characters present on the gene will be multiple. The characters present on the gene will be what? Multiple. The characters present on the gene is multiple. So thus gene can be defined as a unit of DNA on a chromosome which governs the synthesis of a protein that controls a specific character of an individual. So a characteristics in an individual can be result of a single gene or multiple gene. Okay, it is exactly so. When we will be talking about, this is what the question is, that a characteristic in an individual can be result of a single gene or a multiple gene. Characteristic. So gene, DNA, chromosome, cell. Absolutely correct. Kamya, start with cell, chromosome, DNA, gene. Cell, chromosome, DNA, gene. Cell, chromosome, DNA, gene. If we will go in the opposite one, we will be getting cell, chromosome, DNA, gene. Okay. So when we will be talking about, so gene will be what? Gene can be defined as unit of DNA. Means a DNA is there. Its one unit is exactly, think about, a unit of DNA is exactly called as gene. Okay. On a chromosome. on a chromosome where it is present. So chromosome contains DNA, DNA will be exactly getting genes, okay. So which governs the synthesis of a protein that control a specific character, so of an organism. So the synthesis, now who is governing? It is exactly governing, controlling the gene formation. So here one very important character formation, and this protein is exactly controlling the character. And a characteristic is an individual can result of a single gene or multiple gene. So characteristic of an individual can be result of a single gene or a multiple gene. So it will be exactly result of a single gene or a multiple gene, okay. So now we are going to go for the next one. Can I keep it till here? Okay, exactly, I'm not feeling good today. Understood na beta? So tomorrow we are going to carry forward the remaining part of it. Fine, I'm just going to keep it till here only. Bye everyone.